Hey guys, Texas family, Texas Convention of States family. I wanted to get back with you from our conversation last week when we were talking about the special session. And in Texas, as I said before, we have a legislative session from January through February every odd year. So it's 140 days. And when they don't get, when the Texas legislature in Austin does not get things done, priorities from the governor, then he has the right to call a special session. And right now we're in third special session. And I wanted to inform you about the topic school choice or parental freedom. And so I have Mandy Drogan on with me. I wanted to kind of pull you guys into my conversation with Mandy because I think you should know about what's going on because this is going to be available to your children and your families once this passes, the legislation passes in Austin. So thank you, Mandy, for joining us. And Mandy, if you could just give us a little bit of your background of who you are and why are you with Texas Public Policy Foundation?
Sure. So my name is Mandy Drogan. I am the campaign director of Next Generation Texas at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Next Generation Texas is our department for K through 12 education, higher ed, and workforce development. Our job is to look at what's going on right now in our education system and ensure that we are creating policy that really prepares to launch kids and young adults into adulthood to be successful, thriving, happy adults and contribute to the great state of Texas. So what we are looking at right now in the special session is empowering parents with the choice of where to send their child to school. So I am a mother of three. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So I've been through the process of trying to think about the best educational environment for my child. Thankfully, I was able to pick up and move to the location where I was able to send my child to a really great, high quality, classical public charter school. We absolutely love it. And so I'm a public school parent, but I advocate along with a team of people, along with the governor, and along with millions of parents across the state of Texas that says that a child should be in the best educational environment possible. A parent should be the ultimate decision maker of where that child goes to school, rather than it being dictated by the government who draws some arbitrary boundaries based on a street that someone lives on and says you must go to this specific school. So empowering parents means standing up for every parent, and it also means that they have transparency into their classrooms. They have a high quality education, whether that's public school, private school, homeschool, charter school, blended, whatever it is, that parents are respected as the ultimate decision maker, and that every parent has a choice. My little person, my 2-year-old. So excuse me.
Hey, little person, you just stay with us.
I can say,
Okay.
he actually just did an event with the governor in Austin about 2 hours ago. He got up on stage with me, so that was pretty great.
That's nice. Okay, so TPPF started, this is what my understanding is, started or launched, the organization was launched because of this particular policy. Is that correct?
That's right. TPPF was founded about 34 years ago, specifically on 2 issues. One was tort reform, right? To ensure that people were not suing other people out of business for just being litigious. And then the other one is school choice. And that is the idea of education freedom, right? Across the state of Texas, quite frankly, across our entire country. You know, what makes America great is freedom, right? We were founded on the belief and the shared value that everybody should have the freedom to make the choices that will best serve themselves and their families. That has worked wildly successfully whether it comes to private industry. Look, we have the most robust economy in the entire world. Texas is literally the 8th largest economy in the world. So it's been very, very beneficial there. Faith, it's been very beneficial to allow people to select where they worship, whether that is Protestant or Catholic or Jewish or whatever it is. It works very well. And same thing with every other aspect of life. And so what we're saying is the same premise of freedom, the decision-making process should be in the hands of every parent. And that's what school choice is all about.
Right. Okay, so let's take a look at school choice from a party perspective. So I went and looked at first the Democrat Party platform. So the platform is created by parties every other year. Basically, it's a list of beliefs and what they want to push forward. It's a proposals because they do go to a convention. Delegates get sent to a convention within the state. These delegates, and you can be a delegate to, anybody can be a delegate to any party. And that will start next year. We will talk about that at another time, probably around January. But the Democrat Party last year, when they set their platform, they also put in their opinion of school choice. And I'm going to look down so I can read it to you. People are probably like, let's see here. Where did I put it? Let's see here. School choice. Let's see. Basically, they said they are against all schemes that are called school choice. Hold on. Yes. Prohibit misnamed school choice schemes, such as the use of vouchers, including special education vouchers, virtual schools used as virtual vouchers, or voucher equivalent tax credit schemes that seek to support private and sectarian schools. So then we go to the Republican Party platform in Texas, and that is then, let's see, Plank, hold tight. Plank 101 under parents' rights, it says school choice. Texas families shall be empowered to choose from public, private, or public-private charter or homeschool options for their children's education, and the funding shall follow the child or should follow the student without strings attached. We also support tax credits and exemptions for education and choice with the public school system. So like I said, all of you that are listening to this conversation, you can participate to change any of these words that I just read for any party if you participate as a delegate to these parties. So tell us about, from a party perspective, give us your answer, maybe, to the Democrat version versus the Republican version.
Sure. It boils down to really one thing. You either trust an individual to be in charge of their life or you don't. It is no secret that unions try and dictate and collectively advocate for policies in which it keeps a union and specific people in power. So when it comes to Democrats, it's very unfortunate that they have elected to align again with a union or multiple unions or associations or whatever. And their whole premise when they're saying we don't support schemes, vouchers, ESAs, whatever school choice, they can put whatever they want in there. And the whole thing, what they are saying is we don't trust a parent to be the one to select the school. We believe it should be dictated by the government. Government knows best. That is how this should work. That is what they are saying. That is what many of them believe. Many of them, however, and in fact, just today I was at the Capitol, many Democrats understand that school choice is incredibly beneficial, particularly to communities that tend to vote for Democrats. When we'll get into this a little bit later, but look, if you're like me and you have the ability to pick up and move where you want to live to send your child to the school that you want to send them to, or if you're like many members of the legislature, that including Trey Martinez Fisher, who's the head of the Democratic caucus, or I just listened to Senator Whitmire talk about, how parents are dumb. Literally, that was kind of what he was saying in the Senate hearing last week. Look, if you're like them and you can send your child to a public school, what a gift that is that you have. And so what unfortunately Democrats are doing is they are making a political choice. They are making the decision that they need to align with this ridiculous position that a parent should not be in charge of their child's education, even though all the data shows us from 31 other states that it makes the public school system better, even though all the data shows us that particularly low-income students get a significantly better education in the public or the private sector when you introduce private school choice. They do not care. They have made a perverse alignment with union entities, and it is a political decision rather than a philosophical or moral decision. And it comes down to that. It's as clear as day. The unions don't want to give up control of our children, and they are wielding a very, very powerful, expensive, well-funded stick on the backs of many of these Democrats who understand what is going on in their communities and, quite frankly, has gone on for generations. Look, we can look at Houston, and they've done studies. 25% of adults in Houston can read at an adult level. 75% of Houston adults are functionally illiterate.
Wow.
Those 75% of adults likely went through the public education system. This is systemic, it is generational, and unfortunately, we have too many Democrats that are making choices that continue to hold down their very own constituents simply because they would rather have the election funding follow them.
Good.
Same
So
thing.
go ahead. Yes.
I was going to say, same thing is true when we look at Republicans. Look, whether you go back to Ronald Reagan or any leader, any Republican leader since then, this is an issue that has been a litmus test for Republicans. I don't care if you are a Ronald Reagan Republican, a Ted Cruz Republican, a Donald Trump Republican, a Greg Abbott Republican. I don't care where you fall on the Republican spectrum. All of them have in common, they support the basic premise of freedom for kids to be in the best educational environment at the direction of their parents. That is how clear it is. So why don't we have school choice in Texas? Well, unions have spent a lot of time and money pushing propaganda into our rural communities, particularly under this guise that somehow this would harm our public school system. It could not be further from the truth. There's no data to support that. Look, the heartland of America, where so many Republicans do live, do attend public schools, do worship with their school leaders, whatever it is. You know, two things are going to happen in these rural areas. One, we're going to see that, first off, in our rural areas, let me talk about what's going on there. 157 of our 254 counties are in population decline. They are in decline. They are in K through 12 decline. The best way I can explain this is it's kind of like the baby bird. We're holding the baby bird, AKA the public school system, in our hands, okay, in these rural communities, and they are the heart and soul of the communities. They are filled with wonderful teachers and people. And this is where 99.9% of people choose to send their children to school. Now, some homeschool, and there may be a couple of private schools in some of the public, in some of the rural areas. But what we're doing by keeping everything out, innovation out, we're also squeezing the life out of the baby bird. And here's why. If you're in your child rearing and money making years, as I am, it's both, I have to work and I'm raising children. I had to go somewhere. I had to pick up and move to a place where I could get my children the education that I wanted for them. That meant a rigorous, high quality education, but also an education in an environment that is aligned with my values. And that was something that was very important. People in their child rearing years, they're used to having choices. They're used to having options. We are doing nothing to incentivize people, young people, to come and put roots oftentimes on the family land, coming back in. But also there is a lack of jobs. Again, here's a problem. In Texas, we have a workforce development problem. We are projected to be short 10,000 electricians in less than 7 years. So in 6 years now, in 6 years in 2030, 10,000 electricians, 4,500 HVAC workers, 5,000 oil and gas workers, 6,000 plumbers. I can go on, welders. I mean, all of these really high paying jobs. We are not providing an opportunity that we could with education savings accounts for kids that don't want to do four-year college. Maybe they'd like to stay there and be able to work in their own communities. We need to provide an avenue for them to pursue that even when they're in high school. So we should be graduating kids with a high school degree and a plumbing certificate to be a full-time plumber or a welder or an oil and gas worker or whatever it is. And so for some reason, I understand why the rural communities have actually latched on with Democrats to stand in the way, because there is a fear that for whatever reason, if we do this, this could harm our rural communities. Again, 31 other states have done this. There is no indication that this has done anything to harm our rural communities, but it's really just breaking through 20 plus years of propaganda that unions have been pushing into our districts.
Yeah, I lived in Germany for 15 years, and there at the age of 16, they break away from school. Some break away from school. If school's not their thing, then they break away and they have the opportunity to go through an apprenticeship, and it's part-time apprenticeship and part-time school. So
that's exactly what we're advocating for. And some people say, wait a second, we have this in some places. We do in some, but not across Texas, and not at the scale that we need to see this at. We are losing far too many students. And let's be clear, we are losing far too many young men who have been inundated with information that if they don't go to a four-year college, if they don't take out, $100,000 or $200,000 worth of debt, they've been told this from a young age, then you're a loser, you're a nobody, you can't survive. And it's just ridiculous. And it has caused a whole generation of males in Texas to really lose their way. And we need to provide a path for young people who don't want to go to a four-year college, that they can be successful in life just as easily and just as successful as their peers who maybe do choose that path.
Okay, so let's come at it then. So we've got to come at it from a party perspective. We've come at it from TPPF's perspectives. Let's talk about the teacher perspective. I'm hearing that we're going to be losing our jobs. We're going to be losing our retirement. Can you talk to that, please?
Sure. So something that I want to, empowering parents with choice also empowers teacher with choice. So first off, look, if there was ever a teacher that lost their job in 31 other states due to school choice, they would have that teacher or those teachers across every front page, every digital, everything. It has never happened. What has happened is that when private school choice has been passed, two things. One, teachers that want to specialize, maybe they even want to open up their own school. Maybe they specialize for autism. Maybe they, whatever it is, they have that opportunity to pursue their dreams. And number two, teacher pay actually goes up. And let me explain why this
Competition.
works.
Yeah, it's clear.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, explain more. Yeah.
Something that's really important and that is lost is not communicated to our teachers. And it's really important for Texans to understand this. We can see how much money has been added to our public education system. So right now we spend $85 billion on public ed. And by the way, we just passed in the budget bill the largest appropriation in Texas history. It was $10.3 billion. Just to be clear, we spend over $15,700 on average per child in Texas. That's per TEA expenditure data. We can prove that. Okay. We can also look to the National Center for Education Statistics, which is in the Department of Ed, and we can see how much we've increased per pupil spending in Texas. This is key. Since 1970, we have increased per pupil spending when adjusted for inflation adjusted by 166%. A lot. A lot. This is inflation adjusted. In the same time period, when adjusted for inflation since 1970, we have only increased teacher pay by 16%.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's I don't
It's
even know how they survive. Yeah.
it's crazy.
Mm.
Listen, our teachers are being misled. Our excellent teachers are being told the only way for you to get pay raises is to go into administration, right? That's it.
Right.
That's it. You're being forced into it. We have great teachers being forced out of the classroom because they want to make more money. It's so sad. But when we look at that on the whole, only 16% rise. Here's what's going on. We have profiteers that make immense amount of money off our public education system. I'm talking consultants. I'm talking curriculum providers. I'm talking programming advisors. I'm talking builders that can, charge $200 million plus for new schools that are LEED certified and all this stuff where they look like they're college campuses. And look, I'm fine with doing nice stuff, but not at the expense of doing what is right for kids and right for teachers. But that's what we're doing. I just had a mom call me from Prosper, Texas last week and tell me they are trying to pass a $2.8 billion bond in Prosper, Texas.
That's a little town. I mean, I know it's growing, but
yeah, on the agenda is a $95 million football stadium and a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to make private industry very rich. Not a single dime in there for teachers. At the same time, they're telling teachers, we just can't give you pay raises. It's crazy. And why are they doing this? Well, because they know they can control teachers. They can get them to advocate against parents. They have tried to pit teachers and parents against each other when the reality is parents know. I'm a public school parent. I know this, and I know this. We've done polling, this supports it. The two most important indicators in a child's life is their parents and the teacher in their classroom. And by keeping us pitted against each other and using this false claim that somehow that those that want to empower parents with choice do not want to give teacher pay raises, it could not be further from the truth. What we want is the power, whether it is to send our child to a different learning environment, so a private school or to homeschool or blended or virtual or whatever it is. But we also, as public school parents, want to say, look, if you want me to stay in this school, if you want me here, if you want my child in that classroom, you're going to take care of what's most important to her or him. You're going to make sure that the teacher is taken care of first, and then we can worry about all the other spending that you want to spend. And that is really a powerful tool. And that change really does change everything, because parents who can't pick up and leave, parents who want their kids to be in a public school system, right now, they do not have to be listened to, nor do taxpayers have to be listened to. And just by giving parents the choice, what we will see is the system will course correct. And we've seen it across the country. Florida is an excellent example of this. Florida passed private school choice back in 2002. At that point, it was implemented in 2003. And at that point, it was only for low income demographics.
20
now
years.
they have now they have universal school choice, which is wonderful. Parents should be the ultimate decision makers. But that point, it was for their low income demographic. And Florida's schools were really struggling. According to the NAEP scores, that's the National Assessment of Academic Progress, they were showing that kids, the low income demographic in Florida, ranked number 33 in the nation. 33. They introduced private school choice. Immediately, they started moving up. Within 16 years, by 2019, Florida's low-income demographic, and that's public school, private school, I'm talking all their kids, ranked number 1. To this day, they still rank number 1 when adjusted for demographics. Same thing happened in Indiana. We can see their low-income kids ranked 22 in the nation. When they introduced private school choice back in the early 2000s, within 15, 16 years, they popped up to number 3 in the country. We can look across the country and see where are the best public high schools. That's another great metric. Where do we have kids doing the best? Well, we can look at states like Florida and Arizona. They have the top 5 public high schools in the entire country when we adjust for all the demographics. And they have robust universal school choice programs. What this does is it incentivizes our system to be responsive to parents who want a high quality education above all else for our kids that is aligned with our values, that is not participating in these nonsense culture wars that are being crammed down our kids' throats. We just want our kids taught to read, to write, to do math, to talk, to debate, rhetoric, all of this stuff that parents want for their children to engage in. That's all we want. And this change, introducing private school choice that a parent could leave if their school is not providing what they expect out of it, it'll change. It's a game changer for the system.
Gotcha. So Texas ranks where? So we talked about Florida, we talked about Indiana, Arizona. Where does so Texas does not have school choice, but where are we ranking right now?
We're depending on where you're looking, we're ranking in the mid to high 30s to high 40s.
Okay, out of 50 states. Yeah. Okay, and so is this constitutional? I think that's another question. Is this Texas Constitution, as well as the federal Constitution?
Yes, absolutely. It is constitutional here in the state of Texas. We have, and even recently, Attorney General Paxton put out not a resolution, I forget exactly what it's called, but he put out his public statement stating that, quote, an ESA does not violate Article 7, Section 1 of the Constitution, which basically says that is where some people try and say in our Texas Constitution that a general diffusion of knowledge being essential to the preservation of the liberties and rights of people, it shall be the duty of the legislature of the state to establish and make suitable provisions for the support and maintenance of an efficient system of public free schools. So there is no reason why introducing parental choice, school choice with ESAs does anything to undermine the public system of which we are continuing to fund, continuing to support. There is no legal reason why we cannot also include private school choice as a part of our system of public free schools. So that is really important. We can also see it at the Supreme Court level. There have been several rulings going back for decades and decades of saying that there is no reason why allowing parents to direct the public funding that is allocated for their child's education, that they should be the sole decision maker. They can legally be the sole decision maker on where to direct that funding. Just as recently as 2022, we had a Supreme Court ruling that says that Carson versus Macon, they came out and said a state's establishment of interest does not justify enactments that exclude members of the community from otherwise generally available public benefit simply because of their religious exercise. The whole point on that was, can parents direct money to a religious school? Parents absolutely can, just as they can direct their food stamp dollars to be used at a private grocery store, HEB, for example, here in Texas, or they can use their Pell Grant college scholarship to be used at SMU or Baylor. So there's a whole lot of precedent there that, yes, individuals can do that at the Supreme Court level. And the same thing goes for here in Texas. It does not violate the Establishment Clause.
Okay, and so we have our listeners are Convention of States supporters, and so the big question, how does that affect? So we have a Department of Education, right? And we have a lot of homeschoolers that listen to us, and so what are the strings attached? Are there strings attached?
None. I know it's hard to believe, and that's okay. If you're someone like me that has a healthy distrust of the government. So it was really important when we were working with our coalition allies to ensure that there was absolutely no strings attached and there was bulletproof Supreme Court tested language that would protect both families, parents, and kids, and also any private schools that were accepting and participating in the Education Savings Account program. So there was 3 main levels of protections that are included in the legislation. So first and foremost, it's opt-in. No one is being forced to accept and or participate in the education savings account program, not individual families and not schools. If you do not want to utilize an education savings account, if you do not want to accept an education savings account, A-OK, we understand. That is totally fine. In fact, we expect to see several private schools that will sit on the sidelines probably for a couple years and then just to see how it goes, right? They're not going to be the early adopters. Okay, that is totally fine. Number two is that there is absolutely zero federal funding on the included in an education savings account. There is no federal funding included. That is kicked out. Therefore, there can be no federal strings attached. And then finally, there is crystal clear parent protections in the legislation that legally protect all entities, whether you're a parent or a private school entity, from having to adjust your admission practices, your curriculum, anything about your operations or admissions. You are not expected to change that. And that is ironclad. And there is nothing that we will adjust or waiver on to protect our families from maintaining their legal rights. Institute for Justice, who is one of the large national legal entities, again, that has argued in front of the Supreme Court, has reviewed all of this, as well as several other legal scholars, just to ensure that, again, families in private schools would absolutely be protected and there would be no government intervention or anything that they could attempt to change in this.
Okay, so opt-in means you don't have to use it. If you're homeschooled and you don't want to use it, you don't have to. Okay, so ESA, let's talk about ESAs. What does that look like? Is it going to be a state bank? Is it going to be any bank? So an ESA is an educational savings account. So the money gets put from where into where?
Sure. So the money, let's also talk about, it does not come out of any public school funding. So that is really important to note. It does not come out of public school funding, completely separate pots of money. For the education savings account, we have appropriated $500 million, and that came out of general revenue funding. So not the same funding plots. I don't want anyone to think that they're taking any money from public schools, because they are not. Okay, so then what happens if you go and apply and you say, you know, I need to make a different choice for my child than whatever school the government has assigned to me, and I'd like to use an education savings account. You go and apply. And you'll apply online, and then the government will say, yes, you qualify to get this education savings account. And they will put money into an account that's held in the comptroller's office. So it is held by a government entity in the comptroller's office that is partnering with an education administration organization. So for example, here in Texas, we've actually done something almost identical. It basically is an education savings account for our special needs community. We passed in 2021 the Supplemental Special Education Services grants, and that allowed for $1,500 grants for our special needs students, particularly those that were not getting their services during the COVID shutdowns. They could then go and apply and get, if they're one of the 70,000 kids have utilized it now, I think there's 30,000 on the wait list, but they could go and apply, and then the money is put in an account, and then the EAO, the Education Administration organization, they allowed it to be directed to goods and services. So tutoring, speech therapies, educational goods for whatever their specific need was. And this company, there are dozens of them around the country that work in 31 other states. They ensure that that taxpayer funded account is being directed to an approved good or services. So that would be an approved tutoring, that would be approved educational providers. I know that I have family that does homeschooling. They use classical conversations, so that can get expensive when you're purchasing that. So if you're using that, you can direct the funding to pay for that. And if you're using it for a private school, you could direct the funding to that that private school. It can also be used for things like co-curriculars. So, you get music class in a lot of our public schools. If you're a homeschooler and want to utilize it for that, if you need fee for transportation providers, if you're trying to get to a school that, maybe your bus or whatever, there are companies that can get kids to school. So the really beautiful thing about an ESA is that, one, there is a strong level of fiscal accountability. So on top of it being held in the comptroller's office and being administered by companies that are reputable, that have done this throughout the country, but also there is an audit process that we have a third-party auditor that comes in and routinely audits the program, make sure that families are using the funds for approved goods and services, whether that's an accredited private school or any of the other list of goods and services. So I would argue that it's more accountable than a lot of our public school systems, where we've seen, illegal sexual ed curriculum purchased by Fort Worth ISD last year. La Jolla ISD built a water park with $20 million that no one could source, that came out of town. So there's all these different things, but that's how the education savings accounts work. They're very flexible. They allow for families in the 21st century to ensure that they're being innovative and however they need for their families' educations.
So you had mentioned you have to apply online and then you qualify your child or family. So what does that qualification looks like? Because you were saying 500 million has been appropriated.
That's right.
And I think I read around $8,000 per child, right? Or
Sure.
8,500 per child. And then you do that division. You've got 58,000 people that would maybe qualify, but we've got a bunch more kids. So
that's right. That's doing the numbers is important. So that's exactly right, which is why the governor and myself and all of our allies are out on the road talking about universal education savings accounts, universal school choice. We want every single parent to be in control of their child's education. Right now, today, we have $500 million appropriated. Last week, we passed universal school choice out of the Senate, meaning every single parent in Texas can apply for this. And we want that. We want every parent. And what we want to demonstrate is that if there's demand, it should be appropriated, right? It's it's really great to see what will happen when everyone understands what this is. And again, when we talk about, the healthy distrust of government, you'll have a lot of people at the beginning that'll say, no, thanks. But then a few years after, they're going to go, oh, I want to utilize that. And that's why we're fighting for, we do not want it to be limited. You've got some legislators that are like, okay, do that because I know it's beneficial to others, but not my district, or do that because it's been, no. We're fighting for every parent to have this. And from the start, there would be roughly around that many education savings accounts. But we also know that once parents say, oh, I want that too, that provides that incentive for the legislature to say, we hear every parent, and now we need to make sure that we fund it. And also, I want to point out that when this happens and when more parents do it, two things will happen. Most parents are going to want to stay in their public school, but it gives power back to public school parents that they could leave. But also, when we look at the amount of money that we're spending in totality, remember I said earlier, we spent $15,700 per student. And when we're talking about how much in education savings accounts, we've run the numbers. We'll actually start seeing a savings down the line for families, to taxpayers, if families decide to use this option for their children.
So what's the struggle in the House that this has not been able to pass? What's the call to action to our listeners?
Sure. The call to action is to call your legislator. Legislators are making a political calculation right now. It is not a philosophical aversion, not at all. There's a lot that are like, oh, I'm there for it, but they're genuinely afraid, and or they're friends with their superintendents, because superintendents, y'all, make 5-10 times the amount of the average person in their district. Remember, we've got superintendents that make over $500,000 a year in Texas. Lots of them. They're making it's so a
And they
lot
have
of
a big
times
influence, and they have a big influence as well.
they have a big influence, and we've heard them say it. There is no amount of money for our teachers, because right now we're debating on $4 billion to teachers right now. There's no amount of money that will encourage us to support school choice. What they're saying is there's no amount of money that we can be given to public ed that would we would be incentivized or encouraged or open to the idea of a parent being the ultimate decision maker for their child. That's what they're saying when they say that, and they mean it. So it's really important. A call to action is call your legislators, tweet at them. For whatever reason, a lot of them live in the Twitter space. They
Yeah.
listen. They
Yeah.
need to see you doing that. And that's really important. Call them, email them. If you have a legislator's phone number, text them. Tell them they can take a stand. Tell them they can do the right thing. Because if we don't do something to change the trajectory of Texas education as a whole, I'm talking public school kids too, look, we're going to continue to fall further and further down because more and more states are passing this. Schools get better when you pass private school choice. They become more responsive to what parents want. And, you know, I actually heard another data point that for all the economic growth and those that are moving into Texas, people that are moving into Texas have 2 times the secondary degrees. So anything post high school, twice as many, whether it's certifications or actual degrees, as local Texans. Look, our kids are getting left behind. And until we change our system, until we're able to push back, until public school parents are able to push back on the curriculums being shoved down our kids' throats, we're going to keep falling further behind. So it's really important to be positive and encourage your legislator. Look, I know you're afraid of those superintendents. I understand. I understand that you're afraid that they're going to whip up teachers. But the fact is, I'm standing with teachers and I'm standing with parents, and it's the right thing to do for Texas. So that's the call to action. Stand together for Texas and for the next generation of Texans.
Good deal. So if you are on Twitter, then you would want to use the hashtag TXLEGE.
That's
That
right.
way the legislators do see it, because that's the hashtag that they follow. And I will also put a link at below this video, and that you can send a message to the legislature so that they can read it. This is the week that I believe that they're going to hear it. Is that right? Is there an upcoming hearing? Or not yet?
We are waiting. We don't have a date yet. So whether it'll be later this week or next week, we're not sure, but I know for a fact they're in negotiations right now, and they need to hear from you. Every call, every email is logged by their staff. And it's really, really important that parents stand together and make their voices heard.
Good deal. And you'll want to make sure, if you do make that call, let them know you want to give your address so that they know that know for sure that you're a constituent. And then, yeah, so thank you, Mandy. I appreciate your time and all you're doing to, send out this message to everyone that you can around town. I know you've been traveling, and it's been a long road for you, and it's coming to the end, we hope. So I think Governor Abbott also said that if it doesn't pass this special session, which is a 30-day special session, right? And we're already
One weekend.
a week in.
Yeah.
And so that means they have 3 weeks left. If they don't get it done, then he's going to call another one and another one until it gets done, because this is so important to him, right?
That's exactly right. You know, we've had the opportunity to crisscross the state, every Northwest, Southwest, rural, suburban, urban, and yeah, it's incredible to see, when you talk to thousands of parents who are begging you to fight for them, it really does light a fire under you. And I feel it's just so exciting to watch him be firm. And we're doing this. This is the kids of Texas. This is the right thing to do. And I am so encouraged by that. And you're right. He said, I'm gonna keep calling you back. This is the right thing to do for Texas. So I hope they figure it out sooner rather than later. But either way, they're going to be here, and they're going to have to take this up and take this on. So I'm encouraged.
Are you still doing the tailgating parties? at
We
school?
are. So actually, we didn't detect today, hundreds of kids from all across Texas and their parents came in and did a rally at the Capitol, which was awesome. And then we are going to Cornerstone down in San Antonio on the 27th. So in 2 weeks. So not this weekend, but the next Friday. So not quite 2 weeks, 12 days, something like that. We're going to be down in San Antonio. It's open to the public. If any of your listeners are there in the San Antonio area, come on. We're going to do a full tailgate and just again talk about empowering parents to make the best choice for their kids.
Awesome. And are you looking for more schools to do tailgating parties or not?
Absolutely. If there are schools that are willing to host, whether it's parent empowerment nights, which is what we were doing when there was no football back in the spring, if there's schools that would like to host, or if there's schools that have football games coming up and they would be interested in partnering with us, please send them my way. We are always looking for great partners just to.
And Governor Abbott will show up, and he does talk to the people while he's there.
He does. It's amazing. Every place that we've been, our program is usually about 40 minutes long, and then he stays behind and meets every single parent. It's awesome. I've never seen a leader, a governor, just that committed to hearing from actual constituents, actual Texans. And so he does do that, and it's pretty cool to see.
Well, good deal. I'll provide as much information as I can in the video, below the video. And Mandy, again, thank you so much. And we will talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.